your is it Bori? How do you pronounce it? Yeah, it's just gone live now, so you can share it to your crew if you wish. If not, it's just while it's live. You might have some people that are
all right, got you. So I'm going to do that right now.
Yeah, so it should have gone live from the Discipline project, or you can share it straight from my page. Up to you, bro.
You shared this post. Cool. Done.
Dude, first thing I gotta say, I'm jealous of your hair, mate. Considering mine's yours grows every time I see you, your hair gets longer and longer.
Dude, this is lockdown hair. This is the lockdown special.
Well, this is my lockdown hair. That's what I said. It's gone the opposite direction. But Daniel Beckitt, thank you for joining me tonight, mate. I'm excited. Evening Vaughan, who's just said hello. Dude, you are the reason, and I don't know whether I love you or hate you for this.
Go on.
That the luxury of warm showers, the showers that I used to look forward to, are no longer warm showers. They're cold showers.
Yeah.
Dude, please explain to anybody listening the benefits of putting yourself through what I call the torture of a cold shower.
Right. So I'm a Wim Hof method instructor, and part of the Wim Hof method is applying cold immersion techniques. Either that's running outside in winter in just your shorts, a cold shower, most famously an ice bath, like you see Wim do that a lot in the Arctic, in the natural waters. And there's a variety of benefits to cold. One, it gives the immune system a massive boost, which is obviously a very, very topical at the moment. The body goes under stress. We call it eustress, which is a positive form of stress similar to exercise. The body adapts to this stress, thinks, fuck this, I need to prepare for the next time round. I come into this shock. So it releases more white blood cells, which is integral to the immune system defense. But what it also does, and for me, this is my favorite thing, is at Boreas, we say it's the calm within the storm. So it's training the body with the breath as well, but we'll come on to that later. But with breathing, with focus, we get to a point where we can remain calm in cold water, high stress environment. And what happens is the subconscious and the nervous system remembers over time, building slowly over time, how calm you were during that stressful experience. And so then the cold shower can become the argument with the missus, the mortgage payment, the deadline at work. Yes, that stress aspect is still there. That's still in our external, but the way we respond to it is way different. There's a reason why the SAS, Navy SEALs, all the special forces use a lot of cold water techniques in their training. They drill their units because they have to operate under high stress, and that's it.
It amazes me the mental battle that is had in that show. That every time it gets easier, like you become more conditioned. You learn how to breathe through the discomfort. But yeah, I'm starting to love, because a friend of mine, Matty Evans, said his little mantra before he goes under that cold water is step into the fear or step into the discomfort.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really getting out of it. But afterwards, you feel great, man. You feel really good after.
Oh, you do, yeah, for sure. Yeah, your body gets filled with epinephrine, adrenaline. And again, usually in a cold response or a shock response, adrenaline can fatigue you. So have you heard of adrenaline spiking? So like you've got a big meeting coming up, or you're an athlete ready to go on, and your adrenaline can shoot up. So you've got loads of energy, and then you get an adrenaline dump as well. But what this does is, again, over time and training, that you begin to manipulate that energy around the body in a more grounded manner. So opposed to getting the high, because you do get a high and then a dump, which can happen, you start to move it through the body more. So it feels more of a, instead of an instant high, it's more of a gradual high that lasts, longer and longer. That's another aspect.
You can tell how excited I am to do this interview with you, because I didn't even ask you how you were. I just jumped straight into it.
I like it.
Nothing you do, Daniel. Nothing like that. But dude, how on earth did you? Because I'd like to kind of know more about your morning routine. But before we get into that, like how did you discover this world of cold water therapy and the immersion into the cold water?
Right. So a number of years ago, it's got to be maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, closer to 4. I lived in Goa, India. I worked as a PT and a coach, strength and conditioning coach. And I loved it, had a really good lifestyle, very happy, kind of my dream job. And something wasn't quite right at the time. On paper, everything looked great, but I was still searching for something and I couldn't quite identify what it was. And ultimately, over time, that led to a huge asthma attack in India. What we learn of in the Wim Hof method and other holistic kind of techniques is that the body is a mirror of the subconscious mind. It sounds crazy, but whatever you suppress will emerge. And the more you've suppressed or hidden away, the more that kind of dragon can come out. We can call it shadow work as well. And that shadow aspect kind of presented itself as a massive asthma attack. Basically, I wasn't listening to my kind of feelings. I kept suppressing, run away from them, to the point where the asthma attack grounded me. I had to look at this issue of why I felt so, discontented. And that made me have to come back to the UK because India was very humid at the time. It was the rainy season. So I had to walk away from the football squad and come home. And I thought, what am I doing back in the UK again? I'm in hospital. I've just tried every single thing I need to do to try and overcome this asthma, this feeling of discontent. As many years before that, I had issues with addiction, which I'm sure we'll come on to. And I thought, I surrendered. I was like, I don't know what to do. I've read all the books. Why am I still feeling like this? And I was just scrolling aimlessly on Facebook as we do, and I saw cold showers from Men's Health or Men's Fitness magazine. Nothing, didn't reference Wim Hof. And I was like, fuck it, what have I got to lose? I feel like shit. And got into ice cold showers. So this was November. And the ego at the time, I didn't read the bit where it says start slowly. I just went in for 2 minutes. And it wasn't comfortable at all. It felt like hell on earth. But afterwards, got out of the shower, looked in the mirror, and I saw me without all the bullshit. I was so present and grounded. Kind of felt similar to like a mild psychoactive, like a mushroom or something, the experiences I've had in the past. I was just, colors were there, my senses, smell, hearing. I thought, wow. And, I felt great for an hour or two. And then the feelings of sadness and depression came back. So I went, I'll do it again. And I did it for 2 weeks straight. And I felt real differences, not only with my emotional and mental health, but my physical health as well. My lungs had started to clear. And I thought, well, what is this? I'm a PT, I need to investigate further. And I started finding about Wim Hof and then discovered that there's a whole breathing technique to this. I was like, sure, give that a try. And as you've tried and your members, your crew have tried, it's pretty powerful. So when you combine the breathing with the ice or the cold, you get exponential benefits from it.
So this feeling of discontent that you had, like, what was that on a deeper level? So although that it makes sense, yeah, what actually was going on there? What were you missing that you've discovered?
I think there were deep issues within my nature, my shadow, that I wasn't really addressing. So I had a lot of addictive tendencies in my mid-20s, to the point, that accumulated to a suicide attempt. And then since the mid-20s, I did a lot of self-investigation. So I did a lot of, read a lot of books, mental, emotional health, spiritual health, cognitive behavioral therapy, hypnosis, went to ayahuasca ceremonies, Vipassana meditation retreats, all these things, constantly searching. And things did get better. I feel, I was very grateful for those experiences that I went through, because it got to a point where in my mid-30s, I got the job of my dreams. And I was in India and I had this amazing girlfriend and this amazing apartment, and I had, quite a bit of money. First time in my life, I really had those things. Like first time ever. It was like a vision board. And on paper, when you look at it, you think, right, I've made it. I am enlightened. Look at me. I'm like the Tony Robbins. I said it and now I'm living it. So why doesn't it feel right? And that question of what do you think those issues were, it was low self-esteem. It was those issues of needing to present myself in a certain way to the outside world that I am a success. And I think really boring down into it, it was I didn't have the integrity. I wasn't, and I know this sounds cliched, I wasn't walking my truth. I wasn't speaking my truth. I was still effectively running. I had a nicer tracksuit on and better Nike Air Max trainers, but I was running. And that's the thing with the subconscious. You know, it's subconscious. We are unaware, and the process of life for me, journeying is becoming more consciously aware of our programming. Usually, a lot of stuff from childhood that we don't remember. And when I had that asthma attack, and I was grounded, and I was in hospital, I couldn't run anymore. And it wasn't just the asthma attack that came up; it was everything that came up. Issues in the relationship, issues from my past with addictions, all these things came up. And I was like, I guess I didn't go deep enough. And an important lesson for me from now looking back is, if at any point you think, oh, I've made it, oh, I'm done. You know, that ego checklist, whether it's the body, the mind, learning, I don't need to read another book again, all that kind of stuff. Well, you'll get tested on that. It's like, really? So, yeah, I've learned to take things a day at a time. So I have all these tools in my disposal. They're great. I'm grateful, but you never know. Something will push me tomorrow, you know?
I'm doing a training on this tomorrow night, Daniel. This exact topic of it's worded in a very masculine way, because I teach a lot of guys. So it's, you know, how to go from amateur to professional in your self-discipline. And one of the points is that, like, you can't take your eye off the ball, because when you go through a lot of the self-development work like you have, and you've battled all these demons, you bring better things into your life, and then you have more to lose at that stage. You know, when you start to bring in, you know, relationships and business, and like, you have to then be the man that can handle that stuff. So, dude, how old were you when, like, you knew that something wasn't quite right, and how old were you when you were involved in the drugs?
So I'd say I was a very angry teenager. I had a bereavement early on. From 12, my brother passed away, and I never really dealt with it. Nothing to do with my parents or anything like that. I just closed off. It was like a grenade that went off. And other things, like, we didn't have much money. I had a chip on my shoulder. I was from a council estate. I had this real, like, So, you know, going through puberty, I just used to get in a lot of fights, a lot of trouble, used to drink a lot. Always searching to be popular, because I always felt I was invisible. So I would, you know, shame to say it, I'd read the game, you know, how to pull women, and I'd hit the gym, but for all the wrong reasons. I was a pure narcissist. Everything just to get more attention on me, to feel love. And I went on that path and discovered that I had a liking for not feeling, from escaping the way I felt. I couldn't quite identify it, but looking back, it was I hated myself. Felt very unworthy, yet the classic narcissist felt unworthy, but I thought I was the dog's bollocks. You know, that real kind of just very fragile skyscraper on sand. And I got a job in my mid-20s working as a broker with a friend, because I actually I became a professional actor for a few years, came out of that and became a broker. And the broker lifestyle is very, you know, you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street.
Of course.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. And for the way I was feeling, you know, it was like, oh, yes, please, yes, please. And my friend at the time, or one of my best friends, he had a serious cocaine issue, and he nearly died. I was at a house party, and he, you know, pretty much OD'd in front of me. And I said, dude, you need help? And I scribbled the pen down, did some investigation, and found Cocaine Anonymous, you know, like AA. Gave it to him, and he went, oh, cheers, bro. This was at work, like a couple of days later. And he looked at me and went, dude, you know, you're an addict as well. I looked at him and I went, fuck off. No, I'm not. That's how deep I was in. And he's like, no, you're not a cocaine addict. you're a sex and love addict. And the ego kicked in. I was like, well, yeah, of course.
So what's an addict, dude? Like, how do you determine the difference between a cocaine addict and somebody who uses cocaine?
Well, cocaine addicts, like a sex and love addict, is someone who, let's say, for example, I was to go to a party and have some cocaine. I don't do it, but maybe I could do it and not touch it again for a week or 2 weeks. I have some kind of sensible boundary. If you're an addict, you have no boundaries. So for me and my addictions, the amount of times I got sacked from jobs, the fights I would get in, I would wake up, I would be sleeping homeless on a park bench in Houston just to get the next high. And for me, that was the pull, women. So I would, there's a job that's going to start the next day, a great job. I'd just go out getting hammered on the pull to the other side of London, not knowing how I'd get home, not having the money to really get home, but going anyway. Just self-destruction after self-destruction after self-destruction. That is the addict. And the more you feed, the hungrier you get. There's no just one more hit, one more time, one more lay, one more. That is what the addict is for me. And it's hiding deep, deep pain. And it's why in 12-step programs, the first thing you say is, hi, my name's Daniel and I'm a sex addict or I'm an alcoholic, because that's the hardest step of actually acknowledging it. And like I said, my best friend said, you're the addict. And I laughed at him. I was like, what are you talking about?
Well, that's it. We change our barriers, don't we? In our head, those barriers that you've just mentioned that make you an addict. We kind of, we're in charge of those barriers. So we push them, we move them, and we change them. Yeah. So was this happening whilst you're in India as well, or was this one of the reasons you moved?
Well, India happened like 12, 13 years later. So I took a real scenic route. The suicide attempt occurred. I moved back to my parents in Northampton. That's where I reside now. And it was a long and slow climb to sanity. So I had a mental health care team with me. I was put into a mental health unit hospital for 3 days, a place called Berrywood in Northampton. I was on lots of medication. I had to have daily counselling and psychotherapy. I was considered a danger to myself and to others. And yeah, just counselling, psychotherapy, years and years. It took years. And I will say to anyone who may resonate with this, the moment that you can start healing is now, but it is a journey. If anyone tells you instant healing in 24 hours or whatever, yes, you can make big jumps and big steps in awareness, but awareness is one thing, i.e. I am angry because my brother died and the way my parents reacted, for example, that's one thing. But then you need to integrate that truth in. So that's the journey. And the integration is forgiveness. It always boils down to forgiveness. And the common theme with addicts is they do not forgive. Either others, but usually it's themselves. So it's this trapping of guilt, blame, blame you, your fault, I'm the victim. And, victim mentality is another thing that kind of needs to be addressed. It's not a healthy thing.
Well, dude, you've got one hell of a story here. Are you claiming then that it is the Wim Hof method that's been the big turning point for you, or do you think it's a combination of all the things that you've just listed that have got you to this point, or are you confident enough to say no? The Wim Hof made the difference. The cold showers are the thing that's probably where I'm at.
Good question. I believe it's a combination of things. They're all like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. But Wim Hof was one of the big pieces. It wasn't one of the edges. It was main centerpiece. It was a very powerful experience I had with the Wim Hof method. So to become an instructor, I had to do an advanced course in Holland with Wim. Then I had to do the masters in Poland. If anyone's seen the documentaries and stuff when they climb the mountain, I did that with Wim. It was a 5-day course, really intensive course. Lots of breathing, and people will say, what do you mean, how is breathing intense? But as you've experienced, a lot of stuff can come up, and some of that stuff isn't always comfortable. and lots of ice immersions. And on the penultimate day before we climbed the mountain, we did a big breathing session with Wim himself. So he was the one with the drum and he was charging it. 20 of us in a room, and we were doing it for 45 minutes. So I think when we did it before, it was maybe 10, 15, 45-minute session, all of us breathing, all of us huddled together on the floor on a yoga mat. And I burst into tears. And I don't mean just trickle, I mean wept like I've never wept before like it. These surges of memories came through of my childhood. Just bang, 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 like lightning bolts. A bit like a psychoactive substance. And wept for 20 minutes. I was crying so hard, I had a headache. It was just, my body was shaking. And then, as crazy as this sounds, I had an eye mask on as well, so I'm deep into meditation. I felt this shadow leave my chest. Whether that was real, whether that was psychosomatic, imagination, it doesn't matter. It was a means to an end. And after that, I went into the waterfall in Poland, and I've got a video of it. I had a GoPro on, and I submerged myself under the water, came back out. And not to give it any kind of religious connotations, it was like I was born again. I felt like the phoenix. And this weight that I didn't even know I was really carrying had gone. I felt 20 years younger. And that's a lot of the issues with our subconscious pains and nervous system traumas, is that we may have shit that we have no idea we're doing, yet we keep hijacking ourselves, self-sabotage, with certain decisions that we are making through the subconscious to run away from finding out what's really up with us. So we keep going towards toxic relationships. We keep going, we get the text to go on a night out, well, not at the moment, but back in the day. And you shouldn't. Your prefrontal cortex is saying, I shouldn't, but the subconscious is like, go on. And you do it, and then you end up getting late, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think in just to quickly, in today's society, especially for the group of men that you're working with, hardworking, successful guys, is sometimes that can be a bit of a trap. It's a double-edged sword, because these things are outwardly positive, a successful career, a physique, a strong family unit, etc. But that can also hide deeper issues. Like if you're a homeless drug addict, with all due respect to them, people can clearly see, oh, they've got issues. Whereas you can be a, six-figure guy with an amazing physique, a beautiful wife, kids, and be tormented inside. But because you are externally repping, no one questions it, and you don't question it because you're successful. So but then what happens is we start trying to dissipate that shadow energy by, we'll just do another drink. And then that's a half a bottle a night, and it's another bottle. Or, oh, I've got my beautiful wife and I love her, but I'll just go on Tinder and I'm just looking. All these sort of toxic behaviors that come in slowly, but when we don't address them 6 months, a year down the line, they explode.
It's strange that you say about the experience of something coming out of your chest, because it's something I've heard a lot of, especially through people that do any form of psychedelic therapy or psychedelic healing. What was your biggest differentiators between the Wim Hof method and the experience that you went through versus the ayahuasca ceremony when you were going through the psychedelic treatment?
Yeah, getting high on your own supply. Yeah. That was the big one that shocked me. Was I didn't take anything. I did that. And what can happen with plant medicine ceremonies sometimes is, even though they're incredibly powerful and they do shine a lot of truth that we hide away, it can get to a point where we're chasing the dragon. So that psychedelic becomes your prop, your crutch, because I'm going to do it to find out more truth and more truth. And in my personal experience, we call it a medicine, in circles, they call it plant medicines. Absolutely. But you don't want to be taking medicine for the rest of your life, And with plant medicines, because they're so fantastical and metaphoric, sometimes you don't feel grounded with it. You still feel that you're out here. You still feel that, you have this insane experience with a shaman on plant medicines where you're quote unquote speaking to God, and then you've got to go to work the next day, and you're like, what? Doesn't make any sense. But you don't get that with the Wim Hof method. You're up here, but you're down rooted into the earth as well. You're the roots and the branches. And that, for me, is why it was a big piece of the puzzle, because it was like, it's all those things combined. Whereas before, I'd just focus on the exercise, which was very grounding and healthy, but wasn't really addressing some of my deeper aspects. The ayahuasca wasn't really addressing the body as such, but it was addressing kind of like the subconscious and the higher mental states. Wim Hof was the bridge between the two, a foot in both worlds. And yeah, that's why I think the Wim Hof is so powerful, and it's so accessible as well. You know, you go to someone who has issues, and you go, yeah, you may be struggling. Maybe you should try some mushrooms. It's like, what the hell? I'm not going to do that, because we have all these preconceived ideas. But hey, do you want to just do a few rounds of breathing with me and let's see what happens? Yeah, sure. And quite often with the Wim Hof method, people go in for, I just want to sleep better. I want to perform better athletically. But over time, something else occurs. And I remember a few guys on your call that we did. Of course, I won't mention it, but they said that certain things came up, like memories from childhood, like of a divorce and things like that. And it's like, where the hell did that come from? So yeah, that's what the breath.
You're lying on this yoga mat, bawling your eyes out in you know, with Wim Hof around on this course after trying, you know, years of methods and different things. What happened next then? So where did the journey continue from there?
Right, so I had this huge clearing, felt very sensitive for the rest of the day. The next day was the mountain, which was still to this day the toughest physical experience of my life, and close to mental experience. So we went to a mountain called Mount Snezka, and at the time it was -10 at the bottom, and at the top, when we got back down, it was -20 with wind chill. And we climbed it in our shorts. I had a hat on.
No t-shirt?
No t-shirt, no gloves,
Crazy
no scarf, bare legs. And yeah, that's something that truly brings you into the moment. Because obviously you got to remember, guys, we trained for this, okay? Yeah. Still fucking hard, but we trained for it. The moment you took your focus off the present moment, whether that's one foot in front of the other or one breath at a time, I don't know, you see a bird or something falls out of your pocket, you just felt the cold, and you felt this pain, and you felt that shadow, that demon, whatever you want to call it, just, you can't do this. And your mind is flooded with 1,000 get-outs, 1,000 excuses that you're quickly justifying to tap out, to put that jacket on. But then you bring it back to the breath. Deep breath in, root it into the diaphragm, let it go. What was all that about? But having to do that constantly. Till we got to the top of this mountain. Yeah, and that was the next step. Yeah, we got back down, 10 fingers, 10 toes.
I'm never going to moan about leg day ever again after hearing this story. Well, you can't tap out. There's nowhere to go, right? So like that puts the pressure on you you've got to handle your mind state at that point, I would guess, because what do you do when you're halfway up a mountain and it's -20?
Yeah, definitely. And it was interesting because at the beginning of the mountain, there's still the ego to play. There's a lot of talk about ego, negative ego, destroy the ego. For me, I used to feel like that. I don't anymore. The ego was needed in order to survive. You know, it identifies threats. It creates that separation of that person is different to me. Of course, as we go deeper on a journey, those ideas may merge. But my ego was still there, protecting me, holding on to, you know, I need to get my certificate. I can't let my fellow course members down. Wim Hof's in front of me. I can't fuck up in front of him, etc., etc. By the time I got at the top of the mountain, I couldn't give a fuck about any of it. And the ego of all this, the mind chatter was, I couldn't have the energy for it. It's why ice baths are so powerful. You keep lying to yourself, that, like Wim says, an ice bath is a mirror. The cold is a mirror. All this BS we talk about ourselves, you hold that mirror up, the ice bath, it doesn't care. It will penetrate you. And on the top of that mountain, I felt like I was safe. I was surrounded by staff and, you know, medical staff and stuff with the team. But I felt I had a near-death experience. And by that, it was kind of like an ego death, because part of my brain just went, I'm done. And I started having visions of like my girlfriend Heather and my family. I felt like I was tripping out. I hadn't taken anything. And then all of a sudden, I had one instructor on one arm, one on the other. I'd kind of drifted off in the wrong direction, and they pulled me back, and we got to this bar restaurant at the top, and we got blankets around us, and we had a hot chocolate, and we started to slowly warm up, and that took about an hour of just, and then slowly coming back into the body, and just that realization of, do you know how strong we are? Like, do you know that, you know, I'm a firm believer now that whatever is in your circumstance, in your life that's difficult, you can deal with it because it is in your life. It may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility. And when we can own that, when we can really take on board that it's our responsibility, that's empowerment. Because it doesn't matter how uncomfortable it gets, you're owning that discomfort. And that is massive. And that's what I didn't do as an addict, because it was always someone else's fault. It was my parents' fault. It was my upbringing's fault. It was my brother's fault, etc., etc., etc. And that didn't do me any good.
This is why I enjoy the occasional optional suffering. So the cold shower, like you say, there is that internal dialogue that says, why the fuck am I doing this? It's and I love listening to that battle. There's so many different voices going on in there. You know, there's the, like you said, there's the subconscious, then there's you listening to the subconscious, then there's all sorts of battles going on when you're trying to work out who's speaking in your head. But you always, you know, after that cold shower, you always just feel a little bit stronger mentally, physically. And it's such a strange thing to explain to people because it's a cold shower, but the benefits from it, like, it's only been another 2 weeks. I did 60 days in a row before, and I stopped because it was become too uncomfortable, I think, if I'm being honest. Got back into it. I can already just feel just a bit of an edge just in my daily, the way I attack my day. And it's a good feeling. It's a really good feeling. So is Wim still doing these courses? Is the experience that you've had still open to other people to do?
Yeah, so, you know, you can become an instructor. Obviously, things are a bit difficult now because of lockdown. If you don't want to be an instructor and you just want to do that experience, like climb the mountain, they're called Wim Hof experiences. They do them in Snezka. They do them in Mount Kilimanjaro as well. They do them in Colorado in the US. So yeah, anyone can experience them. And I was actually planning to begin, before everything went tits up, of leading my own parties up like mountains in the UK, so Snowdon, all that kind of thing, in winter. Because I'm trained to do that. So that's something.
Count me in. I'm your first fucking sign-up.
Right, okay, that's it. I've got you. Right.
I'll drag all the fellows up as well with us.
Good.
DX. Dude, we've had some amazing people inside of DX to come and deliver trainings, but yours was, I don't know what it was. It just seemed to serve everyone at the right level, because we all felt like we learned something amazing. We all took something away with us that we could practice on and get better. So we've talked a little bit about the cold therapy and the cold water. Can we start to delve into the breathing a little bit and maybe just show a little, maybe give an example of how the Wim Hof breathing works and what it looks like, what it sounds like?
Sure. And just to go back to what you just said about the breathing and how everyone got something that was important, like an epiphany for themselves, is as cheesy as this is going to come across, you all did your own healing. It wasn't me. I was only guiding. And that's the great thing about it, because as we go deeper into the breathing, you get out of your head. Your body and everyone else in that room, the body took over and go, oh, you're finally out the way. You're finally not trying to block me or suppress me. Now I can do what I know what I can do because it's natural. And we released in whatever way that was. Some people felt really euphoric. Some people felt a bit sad, but it was all that was needed for that individual. And we could have done that same session the next day, could have been completely different. Completely different. So going to the breath. So the Wim Hof method, they call it the 3 pillars. It's cold immersion, breathing, and mindset. Mindset is basically the discipline to commit to the first 2. So it's the first 2 of the breathing and the ice. Cold water alone gives you many benefits. They're scientifically proven now. Breathing separately gives lots of benefits as well. But when you combine the 2, 1 + 1 = 3. And what does the breathing do? It does a lot of things. The breathing, we call it power breathing or over breathing, it elevates our mind state. So as we're doing subsequent rounds, one after the other, the conscious thinking mind becomes quieter. May take 1 round, may take 5, depends on who you are. And then when that occurs, the brainwave states start elevating, theta, delta. And what that basically means is we're opening a doorway to the subconscious. So, for example, when you hear or see videos, because I do drumming on my workshops, a lot of shaman do drumming. And it's a particular beat, boom, 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 boom. That elevates the brain into theta state. And shamans call it a foot in both worlds. So what they're saying is you're still conscious and awake. You can still hear things around the room, but you're going into the subconscious mind as well. And once you're in the subconscious mind and you can look onto it, what was subconscious is now conscious. You cannot unsee what you've just seen. And the breath work elevates that state quickly into that area of the mind. It's why you can be doing the breath work and suddenly get emotional, suddenly have a memory that I didn't know that occurred when I was 6 years old, because the subconscious is just opening up. And also what we're discovering is that trauma isn't just linked into our minds, our brain. It's actually embedded into our nervous system. And the Wim Hof method basically resets the nervous system, not just physically, but also emotionally, because these traumas end up acting like scars on the nervous system. And those scars heal, or we think they heal, but then we go on in life making these subconscious decisions which aren't really serving us. And that's because it's in the body as well. And it's why, I don't know if you've ever experienced this or any of your crew, we've certainly had it on our workshops, that when people start breathing, they'll start tapping their body, kicking their feet, banging the floor. And sometimes, depending on how deep they went into the breath work, the meditation, when you ask them about that, they're like, what? They don't remember that they did that. It's the body letting go. It's like when, yawning is the most natural thing, but we suppress it, right? Because of all these, social norms. But the body's like, let me fucking yawn. This breath work unlocks that part of the body and it goes, right, all that shit I've been carrying for 10, 20, 30 years, let's start releasing it. And for some of you may be listening going, well, I am into self-development. I am into trying to become more aware, but that sounds scary as hell. I understand, but the great thing about the Wim Hof method is you are always in control. That's the great thing. It's not like doing a pint of ayahuasca and going, hold on for 10 hours, because you can't tap out. With the breath work, if you're starting to go somewhere that you're not quite ready to access, slow the breathing down. Sit back up. Try it again another day. You're always in the room. It's not it can be a psychedelic experience, but you're always in your body. It brings you back into the body. And we've got to step away from the mind is more important than the body. It's a direct reflection. We need both. That's the holistic path,
Have you read The Body Keeps Score?
Yes.
Fantastic book, right?
Yeah, fantastic book.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Sorry, Daniel. I'm learning quite a lot about trauma at the minute. I find it quite a fascinating subject, because I think people always think something, horrendous, like, a lot of kind of ex-military kind of experience it. But, it's broken down in the fact that, like, trauma is basically like how you feel inside. Like, you could be traumatized without a huge event happening to you. There can be several small things, or like you say, things from childhood that you've carried. and it can just internalize as trauma. It's, you know, you've used the word tormented, which is it's a form of trauma. So I think there's more people walking around with that feeling than we are probably even aware of.
For sure, and it can work against us, a feeling of guilt, because we can be feeling insecure, depressed, low, anxious, but then say, but look at my life, look at the job I've got, look at my family. Why am I feeling like I had in India? Why am I feeling like this? There are people in the world way worse off. And of course, that's always a good thing to take into account. You know, there's starving people in the world. Yes, it brings that awareness back and it brings that gratitude back. However, that doesn't mean we can downplay our pain, because just like you said, pain is pain. So a trauma could be you're a 5-year-old boy and you got bullied and someone said a vicious word to you that no one else remembers. But for some reason, that seared into you like a scar. And then what happens is that Eckhart Tolle talks about it, the pain body. So you've got this wound in you. So at that point, as a 5-year-old, it was insecurity. And because that wound's open, you're now going in life trying to not feel that way again. But what can happen is, in you trying to run away from that, you draw that experience to you over and over and over again, because it's that subconscious deep down wants to heal from that initial trauma. But how do we heal from that? We have to move through the pain, but we're told to get over it. So it's this self-sabotage happens really for our highest good, because it wants us to look in that mirror and go, hello, you remember that thing that happened 12 years ago? And you keep building up on it and try to run away, but it keeps coming back. We need to address it. We need to address that. So please, but we don't want to because it's uncomfortable. So we go for the medication. I'm not knocking medication per se. I'm just saying that, you know, we go for things to suppress the medication, the alcohol, the sex, the shopping, being a workaholic, anything to just not go there.
I totally understand that, what you've just said. Like, I know it because I experienced it. When I was near my lowest, I was probably in the best shape I've ever been, because like you say, you mask the suffering that you're feeling by going to the gym and thinking that that's going to make you feel better. I totally understand it. However, when we start to talk about drive and ambition, how do we know when we're coming from the right place? So, you know, I work with a lot of men that work so hard because they think the money is the thing that's going to make them better in the newer car. And we know that's not true. But how do you separate that from somebody who's driven and ambitious? How do you know whether it's the ego driving you or it's just that internal thing that you have to do in life?
I think being driven, being ambitious, they're great things. You are, I am, many of your, well, all of your members are. For me, first it's getting presence, whether that's through meditation or the Wim Hof, something where I can kind of look outside of myself and be objective. Are my decisions being made due to how other people may feel about me? So, for example, am I driven? And this isn't an instant answer. This can take years.
Yeah.
Am I driven because I need to please my father? Am I driven because I'm the eldest son and I have to do that because that's my culture? Do I have to get married and have the kids because that's what my religion says, and then I'll be a good person, I'll be a holy person? So all these things, and these are deep rooted because we absorb this culturally and from our peers and from our family. We just absorb layer upon layer of who we are. And that's the big question, right? What do I want? What is my purpose? And really, your purpose, your drive, all those things, the love, the family, the money, the success, the cars, the houses, they should be a bonus to what you inherently do for you, no one else. And the great thing about it is usually once you step into that path, or I call flow state, those things naturally come to you anyway, because your energy is so abundant people just want to be around you. You start meeting the right people, the connections come, it all just kind of gels together. So yeah, why are you doing the things that you do? And another one as well, if no one was looking, would you still do it?
That's exactly how
if no one was looking, would you still do it?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm again, one of the things I always ask the guys is, yeah, when no one is watching, that's the version of you that I'm super interested in. Do you think there's any other way to learn what you want in life, other than bringing into your life what you don't want, what isn't welcome, what harms you? For me and for the guys that I've coached, there's always an element of they have to experience what it's like not to feel good. They have to experience what it's like to be out of shape, to want to get into it. They have to experience that suffering and that torment you've mentioned to really get into something like a spiritual self-development.
Yeah. I think you can learn things without any discomfort. However, there is a payoff to sacrifice, to blood, sweat, and tears, whether that's emotional, physical, mental. For some reason, we are wired, it's probably linked to our survival as hunters, that when we work and it's something that we enjoy, we get flooded with endorphins. And when we work and we push and we have to move through things that are uncomfortable, there's an aspect of ourselves that that relishes that sacrifice, that knows that the more we put in, the more we get out. For example, just in business, a lot of the times when you give, I learned the hard way, there's a time and a place for giving things for free. Sometimes when you give things for free, people don't value it. So that's a very basic, sort of superficial level, but it's the same way with what we do. I could have 2 books in my hand and say, both of these books are fantastic. This one I just found on a train. This one I paid 200 quid for. What one are you going to pick? Right? We negotiate through life, and really, it's like the hero's journey. It could be a lot easier, but that's the whole point. We have to kind of go through round and round. It's like a spiral. We go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's not so much for me learning stuff. It's actually letting go. It's like you're a piece of marble or stone, and you're actually chipping away. You're chipping away, remembering.
One thing I would encourage everybody to do is invest in themselves, especially when money is tight, because like you have just nailed it by saying that. I remember, Daniel, when I put on an event a couple of years ago called No Holds Barred, and somebody messaged me and said, I'd love to come, I'd really love to come, but I just can't afford it. Paul Mort was speaking, I'd love to come and see Paul Mort. And me being me, I went, dude, you know what? If it helps you, I'll chuck you a ticket. I'll sort you out a ticket for free. And on the day, he messaged earlier, said, I can't make it anymore. I'm busy doing something else. And that just hits home that story of, yeah, there's value, isn't there? When you invest something. I remember my first program, I called my sister and she lent me the money because I couldn't afford it. And it had more value. It was more precious. I dedicated myself more. It was so important when, like you say, when things are given to you. And I find this through the journey of life sometimes. This is why I think pain is a great motivator, because it's the reason to do the work. Nobody wants to be in pain, but for me, pain's always been an amazing catalyst. It's the nudge. And you experience clearly a lot of pain, a lot of torment. And I think that might be reflective in where you're at now, because you're clearly super developed in this game. You're like at a very good level. But I don't know if you'd be at that really good level if you weren't at the opposite end of the spectrum and having suffered so much.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. And like I said, it's a day at a time. We're having these conversations. We are not perfect. We still fuck up. We still procrastinate. We still do all these things. But it's all linked for me, that important lesson of if I choose to not have a cold shower, if I choose to have junk food, if I choose not to go into work, that's on me. That's my decision. I take full accountability for that. So yeah, it's thank you very much.
Well, I'm going to bring you down now. So before we start thinking this guy's perfect, Daniel's sorted, his life's on, this guy's got everything. what are your biggest challenges now? Like, where do you fuck up? Like, what do you still find really hard? What goes wrong? Let's throw some reality in, because I'm sure those things exist, right?
Yeah. So one that's a big one is poverty consciousness. And what do I mean by poverty consciousness? This thing of feeling poor, never having enough, struggle, and these are things that have been touched upon in the Wim Hof, in plant medicines. I recently undertook a shamanic practitioner course, so I do that now, which is perhaps another conversation. So doing a lot of kind of journeying, they call that shadow work, going into the deep aspects of the subconscious. And yeah, it's like a reoccurring thing that comes up. I have way more awareness of it now, and I know when I'm self-sabotaging, but that's still something that's like a bit of an issue if I'm not careful. If I kind of don't stay aware, I can get dragged into that. Whereas other issues like the sex and love addiction I had, that's like, it feels like a distant memory. I'm not going to say, oh, it's done, because like I said at the start, oh, really? The universe will test me. But it's it feels like that's good, you know. But yeah, the thing with money, and I think, you know, being self-employed, being a business owner as well, that, you know, next client, next job, that's something that I admit I still wrestle with. But I'm grateful now that I have these tools where I can observe that, and I've got a great team around me. You know, you're nothing without the team, right? You're whether it's your colleagues, your partner, your best friends, who you work with. What is it they say? You're the combination of the 5 people you spend most time with. I really strongly agree with that. So yeah, check your friends, who you're hanging around with, and also remember that we're reflections of each other. So don't just necessarily blame your friends. You're part of that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And dude, we'll talk off air, but I'd love you to come and do some more work with the guys inside my program.
I'd love to.
Yeah. And I know we exchanged emails, and I owe you an email back. But yeah, something regular, because I think, yeah, having a taste of something is good. But let's face it, if you want to become better at something, you have to practice it, like anything. So I think having you maybe once a month, once every 2 weeks, just guide the guys through, and a bit of accountability as well. You know, I wouldn't turn up to your session not having done the breathing, not having the cold session, the cold showers. So yeah, we'd love you to play a role in that, because you've got a very good vibe. Like, you know, when you just know somebody's on the right path, and like you just said, like, who you spend time with is so fucking important. So as soon as I see somebody or speak to somebody that's got great energy, I'm all over it. I'm like, I want to hang out with that guy. I want to learn off that guy, and it's infectious. And I think a lot of guys now just don't have. We spoke about this last week as well on the podcast. I think a lot of guys now just don't have that role model. They just, you know, they're in with the circle of lads that are low on ambition, you know, low on confidence, and ultimately end up doing things that they maybe shouldn't, to try and get some fulfillment out of life. Yeah, for sure. I would be honored. It was great meeting those guys. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, if they're up for it, let's make it happen for sure. Absolutely. So, dude, where should a guy start then? Let's just say we've got your, you know, your typical 20, 30, 40-year-old guy that's like, you know, it's just struggling right now, you know, struggling with maybe some torment, some unhappiness and fulfillment. Just, you know, you just know, don't you, within your gut when things aren't right. Like, if they want to know a little bit more about what you do, or Wim Hof, or just what the next step is, what should they be doing? What should they be looking at?
Well, there's so much stuff available online now. There's the WimHof.com. There's an app which is free now, which is a Wim Hof app. You go on the Play Store or Apple Shop, whatever it is, and you can go on that, and it'll introduce you to the breath work. As you know, once breath work on your own is a fantastic start, but when you do it led and when it's in groups, it's always more powerful. But definitely a good place to start is the breathing. And I'm generalizing here, but usually for us guys, we find it hard to talk about stuff, right? And, you know, people will say, oh, just talk about it, get it off your chest. And of course, that's mega helpful and healing. But some of us may not even be at that point yet, of being able to kind of just talk to someone, or even voice it out loud on your own. And that's where the breathing comes in, because it's like, it's okay if you feel scared. It's okay if the ego feels nervous. the body's just going to take over for a while, and we're going to do 1 round or 2 round or 3 rounds of breathing, and let's see what comes up. And you take it on your own terms, because as soon as that discomfort comes up, you're aware of it. A switch has occurred. You cannot not know what you've just seen. So you just take a step back and you try again tomorrow. And then next day with an intention. So you had a particular memory or discomfort come through, like a divorce of my parents. Where the hell did that come from? That's a bit much. Not ready for that. Okay. Wait a day, wait another day. Go in again with that intention. With that intention, let's explore that memory again. And we go again. But we lean into it. We don't have to smash through it. We can lean into it and come back out. Lean in, come back out.
I think what was great, with what you did with the team was the fact that, like, for example, the cold shower, you said like week 1, just 5 seconds, just 5 seconds, and then week 2, just double that, 10 seconds. And that's the approach I've been taking, and it's now at 40 seconds. Same with the breathing. It's like, lads, just 1 round is great. 2 rounds, brilliant. 3 rounds, fantastic. But 1 round is better than 0, right? 2 is better than 1 kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that was really helpful. So that's the place to start, right? 5 seconds is good enough.
5 seconds is good enough, because if we put on 2 minutes, and we may be able to do it, but you'll just have so much resentment towards it. It's an uphill, that it's too much too soon. Just start gradually, and your body, your mind will love you for it.
Let's just very briefly talk somebody through this then, because I think there might be people listening to this thinking, I'm going to give this a try. But let's assume we start with the water on warm, and you go into the warm shower.
Yep.
And you're standing under the shower, not really knowing what's coming, and you're going to turn it as cold as it'll freaking go, yeah?
Yeah. Well, depending where you are on that range, for you, for some it may be cold all the way, but you're starting the shower head on your legs, or it might be halfway. Depends on your sensitivity. But let's just say, yeah, we go all the way cold, and we count for 10 seconds. If you're struggling, put a timer on, or three deep breaths. That's about 10 seconds. 3 deep breaths, and then just turn it off, and then go again the next day, and just try and keep that time for at least a week, 5 to 7 days, and then the next day build. Don't build too quickly, especially if you hate cold water. If you hate it, just build over weeks.
Daniel makes it sound so easy. Trust me, 10 seconds is a fucking long time.
Yeah.
I screamed like a girl the first time I turned that shower. Daniel didn't tell me that I could just start my legs. I'm straight there over my head and my face. Can't breathe. But it's well worth it. Dude, so what I love to ask at the towards the end of these interviews is, I'm interested in books and writing and so on. Are there any books that you absolutely love that you recommend everybody should read, or is there anything you're reading right now that you think is pretty interesting? What are your top recommendations?
There's a book. Forgive me, I can't remember the title of it. Do you know Joe Dispenza's work?
No.
Oh, right. So Joe Dispenza, and I can't think of the book.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do.
So yeah, his you are the placebo effect. Basically, it's just covering what we've spoken about, like the power of the mind, the subconscious, how trauma is held in the body, and ways to release. And one of the ways he talks about is his breath work.
Right. Yeah, I keep hearing his name come up. I keep hearing that name come up. So
yeah,
it's clearly
from him. And Supernatural, that's a great book, because he uses like scientific documents as well, and anecdotal stories of how amazing we are once we focus and once we clear through our crap, that we are capable of so much.
Dude, why don't more people get interested in that word called potential? It's again, I try not to get too involved, because whenever something frustrates me, my mentors always point out, Alex, it's a mirror, it's a reflection. But why aren't more men stepping forward and saying, I want to develop, I want to learn, I want to become a better person? It just seems easier now to be distracted, to get lost in your phone, and just live life with your eyes shut.
It's the double-edged sword again of having that discomfort or trauma. And let's talk about that as well, that it doesn't always have to be hardcore trauma. It could just be mild, it could be laziness, something that's not very productive or positive. But we're just comfortable enough where we don't have to access that. It's like that slight pain that we've got. It's a niggle. So it's not enough to want to create major changes. You perceive that as, so it's the status quo, because you've just got Netflix on, because you can just ring up and get a Domino's pizza. And it's always that we're surrounded by such comfort. It's, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Whereas if something was hardcore was to happen, you know, if Armageddon was to come tomorrow, God forbid, how are you? You're put in a survival situation. How are you going to react? And it's with the ice and the fit. How are you? A good indicator of who you are or where you are at right now is how you are under fear and stress. Who do you become? Are you the person that, you know, you hear something on the news and you run out and you start piling toilet roll into a trolley? Are you that person? Or are you, you feel nervous and scared, but you're grounded and you become the captain. You make these choices. Who do you become?
Yeah, lockdown, let's face it, sounds harsh and it might offend some people, but lockdown exposed us to where we're at. You know, yeah,
absolutely. On a collective level, for sure.
Yeah, and this is why I refer to you know, the amount of pain that you were in was so great that you've made this amazing transformation. All the best people I know, all the most inspirational people that I know have all been to really bad, dark places. That's why they're so incredible. They've not only survived, but they've used that fear and that pain to motivate them to another level that I just don't believe they would be unless they experienced what it was like not to live a very nice life.
Yeah, it's like you say, you can have a conversation with someone and you can tell pretty quickly that if they've got character or not, and usually that's based in some form of trauma that they've gone through.
Do you drink?
Occasionally.
Yeah, you'd be a great guy to go down the pub with and have a beer.
Yeah, well, I'm a whiskey man. I do like whiskey, neat.
Too cool,
yeah.
Mate. Too cool.
But yeah, I'm if the occasion calls for it, yeah, I'm definitely up for a drink for sure.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Dude, we've done books. What about TV, Netflix? Are you into anything right now? Is there anything that we should be watching?
I've got to admit, Netflix at the minute is guilty pleasures. I'm doing some long days at the minute, so yeah, it's all just it's all pretty much trash TV. Is there anything that sometimes I'll put a podcast on YouTube Live, but that's like Russell Brand, Joe Rogan, kind of, you know, the usual suspects.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty cheap and trashy at the minute on my Netflix.
So you're teaching a lot of guys right now. Well, a lot of people right now, yeah.
What's that? Sorry.
You're doing a lot of teaching right now.
Yeah, well, a lot of coaching online. Typically, my main body of work is workshops. And I can't wait to get back to that. And I would love, actually, another conversation after this is, I know you guys are in Warwickshire, but I've got an amazing space in Northampton, just putting you guys in a minibus. So it's all the transport sorted. You come down, do it, and then we take you home.
Dude,
that's what I've got thinking.
Yeah. Mate, nobody right now is going to complain about traveling. We're all desperate to travel and get away from our environments that we've been in. So, mate, that sounds amazing. I mean, we were going to do Unplugged, you know, which was lockdown hit, and then Unplugged was due 2 days after. So you were going to come and work with the guys. So, mate, we'll absolutely have to do that. And taking these guys, I'd love to drag these guys up Snowdon with their shirts off. I think it'd be amazing. It'd be a right laugh. You can lead.
I'll bring the fighters as well with us.
Yes.
That's good motivation.
Absolutely. It sounds like an absolute blast. Dude, let's finish. Why should, if in a sentence or two you can kind of just reiterate, why should anybody, whether they're struggling or not, start diving into what you do in the Wim Hof method? What's in it for them?
To become the calm within the storm. Become the calm within the storm. That's it.
Mate,
you're the storm. You are the storm.
Mate, you're a fantastic guy. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Discipline Project podcast. Daniel Beckitt, what a guy. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, guys.